So, a warm good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the International E-Conclave. It's a wonderful Sunday once again, and we are all of us are here gathered to learn about yet another very interesting topic, very commonly used in India, on nicotine replacement therapy. Now, I'm sure that most of the questions regarding NRT are clear, and there's a good discussion which is happening in the chat box as I see about the SLT usage, its dosages, and the NRT uses for the SLT users in India, its dosages, and what kind of treatment modality can be followed. I'm sure this panel discussion is going to add more value to it. With this, I'm very happy to invite the panelists on the board. We have Dr. Rakesh Gupta, a very extremely and terrific and prolific tobacco cessation expert and onco surgeon by profession on the panel. Dr. Sandeep Nair, who's a pulmonologist by profession. Dr. Neeraj Rawani and Dr. Aditya Agrawal, psychiatrists on the board. Dr. Ajay Pandey, who's a cardiologist by profession. Dr. Ashish Birla, general manager from the medical team of JPCP. Dr. Namita Shanbag, public health dentist, and Dr. Prashant Sethi, who will be the moderator for this panel discussion. Sir is director of the Mumbai Psychiatric Clinics. He's also director of 3Cube Medica and consultant and senior medical advisor of Pfizer Neurosciences. We have with us Dr. Kia Sarkar, professor and head in department and HOD in Department of Oral Pathology and Microbiology at Faculty of Dentistry, Jamia Millia Islamia. She's the chairperson for the panel discussion today. She has teaching experience in the oral pathology field for more than 22 years as a recognized postgraduate teacher for the MDS course. Have more than 50 plus publications to her name at both national and international level, and is very much interested in the oral areas of oral cancer and pre-cancer, salivary diagnostics, dental education, and ethics. With this, I hand over the panel discussion to Dr. Prashad sir and to all the panelists on the board.
Thank you, Shruti. Thank you for the kind introduction. So, without much ado, I'll start the proceedings. In the beginning, thank you, Dr. Pawan Gupta sir and Dr. Nimish Desai sir for giving me this opportunity. And I also thank all the panelists and the moderator for making it possible for this particular session. I'll be presenting a short case. This is for my clinical practice, which I'm presenting. And I've intentionally kept it open-ended, so there's a question answer at the end. And after the case presentation, we will be taking the question answer. So just a minute here. Yeah. So this was a 48-year-old male who presented in the OPD with complaints of cough, sleep apnea, tiredness, weight loss, and elevated blood pressure. Actually, he was referred by a physician friend of mine. He had been a smoker for last 28 years. Weight was 60 kg, height 179 centimeters with a BMI of 18.7. On examination, his teeth were nicotine stained, had fair oral hygiene, though well groomed and well maintained in the OPD. His facial skin was dry and there were signs of wrinkling at the corners of the eyes with blackened lips. Yeah. So in the past history, there was no past history of major psychiatric illness reported. In medical history, was a known case of hypertension on lisinopril. And my friend had particularly sent it to me because he said that it was, first of all, his blood pressure used to be not under control. It used to be very labile. And obviously, the smoking part was also there. No history of diabetes, dyslipidemia, bronchial asthma, peripheral vascular diseases, or cardiac problems. In family history, there was a history of majority of the males in his family having regular smoking habits, including the first degree relatives. And actually, our first speaker, Dr. Gupta sir, also mentioned about the genetic loading part. So I'm happy for that. So smoking does have a genetic component, very strong component. In social history, he is married with 2 children, extended nuclear family. There's a history of smoking in father who has reformed now following myocardial infarction at the age of 51 years. His primo personality is an all-rounder who is all-round in school with good leadership skills and always known to be in front and lead the team. Ambitious entrepreneur, independent venture by age of 24 years, and he was successful. And on inquiry, there were mild traits of anxiety which were identified, but because of his highly intellectual capacity, this anxiety features never came to the forefront. In vital signs, blood pressure was okay, 120 by 75. But like I said, when the physician friend referred to me, he told me that it keeps on fluctuating and sometimes it goes really haywire. Heart rate of 100 beats per minute, respiratory rate 14 breaths per minute. In the examination, what was sent across to me in the radiographic and spirometric evaluation, the chest radiograph was normal. The FEV, that is the forced expiratory volume at the end of 1 second, was 85% of the predicted. And we have a pulmonologist on the panel who will be explaining us about this index. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it properly because it's a French name. Tiphaneau-Pinelli index, which was 65% of the predicted value. The laboratory investigations, serum electrolytes, creatine, the BUN were normal. On inquiry, he was smoking around 25 cigarettes in a day. And what he mentioned was typically in his working days, it would go higher in the office. And when he was at home due to social constraint and restraint, he would come that day, he would smoke 2 or 3 cigarettes less. So I started with the 5AA model for brief intervention. Here we basically ask about the smoking habit. We advise to quit smoking, assess the willingness to quit smoking. Dr. Shastri, Christina, all of you have addressed this in one form or the other, and assisting through counseling or medication or both, and arrange for the follow-up. So these are the 5 A's which we typically use. I'm not going to the 5 R's because that will be a subset altogether. So this 5A model for brief intervention was introduced. And being an intellect, he had already searched the Google, he had gained some information, and we discussed all the modalities of treatment. But he insisted, patient insisted on getting nicotine gums as he perceived them to be easy to take and convenient. However, keeping in mind his addiction potential, he was prescribed nicotine patches. And one more thing which is very important here is, see, he was going to office. So every time popping in a gum in front of everyone was slightly cumbersome for him. So we came to the point that nicotine patches would be preferred. And keeping in mind his addiction potential, I was not sure whether he would, and it's a OTC, NRTs or OTC. I was not sure how I could monitor and how much he would be taking in a day. So 21 mg patches were prescribed once a day. But within a week, this person came back to me saying that he was getting significant craving. And in spite of the gums, he was smoking at least 2 cigarettes per day. And already in the previous speakers have addressed that we can use a combination of these patches and gums. And then I thought, but even then, keeping in mind his addiction potential, so we made a conscious decision at that point in time to go to gums, where he was shifted to nicotine gums, 4 mg gums every 1 to 2 hours. Craving apparently significantly reduced with gums. So end of the 3 to 4 weeks of treatment, he was nearly off cigarettes, which was a very good sign for me, because keeping in mind, and obviously the harm reduction which you mentioned, if you compare gums and smoking, I would obviously prefer gums because of the harm reduction it causes. And at that point in time, I thought that these questions would be relevant for us. I'm not giving the conclusion of the case. I'll ask the panelists to give their views. And once the panelists give their views, I'll just in the last, I'll conclude what happened with the patient. As of today, what is the case? I have these questions in order, but with your permission, everyone, I'll just jump the question a little bit here, because for me, there is something interesting in this. I would like to ask Dr. Sandeep Nair, pulmonologist and very well experienced in this field. Sir, I would like you to answer the third question. Sorry, jumping the gun here. I do that on and off. So people get a little bit started, no? The people get alert.
Yeah, sure. So let me
Third question, sir.
Yeah. So first of all, let me explain what we talked about, the Tiphaneau-Pinelli index. This is basically a ratio of FEV1 upon FVC. That is a forced expiratory volume in first second as compared to the total forced vital capacity. Now, normally it should be above 80% in most of it, but when it is less than 0.7, that saturation is less than 70%. So as per GOLD guideline, that is a GINA, that is a global obstructive lung disease, which we all follow for the management of COPD. So as per the GOLD guidelines, if it is less than 70% or 0.7, here it was 65%. So he automatically becomes a COPD patient. And then we have to classify it on what level it is. We have 4 grades, 0, 1, 2, 3. And in fact, that is how we are going to diagnose and treat our patient accordingly. So after we have FEV1 upon FVC less than 0.7, we just want to see the FEV1. If it is more than 80%, it's a mild case. And your patient has 85% FEV1. So it comes to under a mild case. Of course, from 50 to 80 is a moderate, from less than 30 to 50 is severe, and less than 30% is very severe. So this is how we classify. Now, this gentleman who had come to you, unfortunately, has been smoking for past. He has been smoking a number of cigarettes for almost 28 years, which is a quite severe form of smoking. Now, you have very beautifully talked about 5 A's. We also do the same thing because this is as per the GOLD guidelines that ask, advise, assess, assist, and narrate. 5 things, we always do it. In fact, we make it a rule that every time we ask the patient whether he's quit smoking or not, and we advise them, assess them, and we always try to help them. So whatever medication you give, until and unless patient stops smoking, it is of no use because that will continue increasing the morbidity. So along with, of course, cigarette smoking cessation, which we always carry on, we may give him a bronchodilator in the form of beta agonist or a muscarinic agonist. These are the two normal pharmacotherapy given in the COPD guidelines. We may give a long-acting beta agonist and long-acting muscarinic agonist. But until and unless we ask the patient to stop smoking, all these medication will be futile because his FEV1 as well as FEC will continue going down. So to me, the foremost importance is smoking cessation or whatever the risk factor is. We have a lot of chula smoking ladies coming to us from the villages. We have a lot of patients who are exposed to different environmental pollution coming with the COPD. So stoppage of these offending organs, stoppage of these offending risk factors is the foremost importance when we start any medication along with the pharmacotherapy.
Okay. Sir, only one question, if you can, in keeping in mind the lung condition, patches and gums would make a difference as per your clinical experience, or based on the patient profile we decide, or is one of them a deterrent for the particular lung condition which or suppose, sir, his FE1 was less than 70%, like you mentioned, more than 85% is good. So will there be a difference in the choice which we make for patches and gums if he had more lung compromise?
So, there are 2-3 things which we keep in our mind. Not only the patches and the gum, we also see the age factor of this. How, how is he going to listen to us? How compliant he would be? Many of these patients, you rightly said, might not be happy to take the gums and want to take a patch. But at the same time, on the other hand, patient with a cardiac problem and so many problems, they might be apprehensive of taking all these patches. So with this patient, I think we should go with the gums if possible, if the patient agrees to it. Of course, there is some, even if you ask them to apply patches, I've seen many of the patients that craving doesn't go actually. They want something in their mouth, unfortunately. So many of them ask for it. That craving has to go. Until the craving goes, they will ask for 1 or 2 cigarettes, and gradually this 1 or 2 keeps on increasing. And these patients, they come to us with both smoking as well as nicotine comes.
Great, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks for answering that question. We come to the first question where I was supposed to start from. Dr. Rakesh Gupta, sir, good evening. Thank you for joining. Pleasure interacting with you again.
Thank you.
Sir, this is actually a multimodal question, but I submitted in one line. Will nicotine gums be useful in the long run? What I mean to say, we normally focus at 3 months. The previous speakers has said 3 months is sort of the treatment period. And at the end of 12 weeks, will he be able to quit? Or is there something which we need to bring into play? Because, sir, in practice, we don't have that option of calling up like a helpline every day, following up. That is in clinical practice, it does not happen, sir. It's very difficult. Sir, what is your take on the first question, sir?
My response to the first question is that nicotine gums can be used in the long run. And but in view of the history of the cardiac element, hypertension, we'll have to be vigilant about the fluctuations and the blood pressure and how does it go. So that is what I will keep in mind. Will he be able to quit at the end of 12 weeks? most of the users quit. But if he is unable to quit, we have to find out, re-explore what are the reasons, and accordingly, perhaps the treatment can be modulated. That's my second response. Satisfied?
Okay, sir. So you brought in two important issues for which we have the other two speakers. Sir, I'm sorry, you were saying something. Did I interrupt?
No. I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah. Sir, you mentioned two important things, and for which we have the other two panelists. You mentioned about the blood pressure part and other modalities of treatment. So, just to be in flow with the talk, we have Dr. Pandey sir with us, renowned cardiologist. I think sir would be the right person to answer the seventh question, because literature I read, I think clinical practice will make a big difference here. The sixth question will be, will nicotine patches and gums cause an impediment in blood pressure treatment, or will it affect the vitals in any way, or will it affect the treatment, cardiac treatment anyway? So I would request Dr. Pandey sir. Sir.
Thank you, Dr. Shetty. We have, as Dr. Rakesh Gupta sir has already enumerated the drawbacks of nicotine gums and patches, and the previous speakers in the presentations have already dealt with that. These nicotine replacement therapies are practically contraindicated if the patient has a recent MI or he's got an unstable cardiac rhythm abnormalities. But as far as the blood pressure is concerned, we all know that nicotine is one of the important risk factor for for the blood pressure, high blood pressure. In the lifestyle management, when we are speaking for the other lifestyle management strategies for weight control, regarding the diet and exercise, nicotine addiction is one of the most important fact which many of our hypertensive patients are there. And it's a really very important cause for resistance of hypertension or poor compliance for therapy for hypertension. Like many of our patients, though we keep on increasing their blood pressure medication to keep their blood pressure under control, but their tobacco addiction or tobacco consumption doesn't goes down. So if the tobacco consumption is not going down, it is very difficult to manage blood pressure in such group of patients. Similarly, the nicotine patches have got a similar effect because nicotine has an effect on the cardiovascular system in the form of vasoconstriction and increase in heart rate. So all these vasoconstriction and increase in heart rate or cardiac output leads to rise in blood pressure. And not only rise in blood pressure, gradually it makes the arteries more stiffer, and the plaques which are there, they are more prone for, they're more vulnerable to get rupture, and people are more prone to have a sudden cardiac events or acute coronary syndrome events. If the patient is on nicotine gum or nicotine patch, like as a nicotine replacement therapy, it is really a difficult job for us to keep a good control of blood pressure. And we need to have at least tobacco de-addiction in such patient to have a better blood pressure control. So that's my...
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for your input. I think Dr. Gupta, sir, wants to ask you a question. Sir, please.
I don't want to ask a question, but just wanted to say that although NRT is not harmless entirely, but it's a pretty safe therapy, So it's very important that we do not miss on the aspect of the person, why we are using it. And we are using it here for helping the person to quit smoking, which is much more harmful. So I consider, and I have full faith in my cardiologist in the hospital, that they will be able to manage if there is an element of tachycardia or some arrhythmia with the more addition of some treatment. But mostly I have never found it challenging to use NRT, except in the people who have the MI within last 2 weeks or stroke, or somebody has got severe arrhythmia. I generally prefer to use NRT in them. But yes, there is an option always to use along with that the bupropion or varenicline. So perhaps that can take care of modulating the dose of NRT and titrate.
You're very right, sir, that there are these two conditions which you have said, that these are the acute conditions or unstable conditions where we can't use it.
Yes.
But the point here is that definitely it in the patient, those who have got an uncontrolled blood pressure, or those who are requiring more than 2 or 3 antihypertensive medications, or those who have got a resistant type of blood hypertension. In those group of patients, definitely NRT also is an impediment, and not for all patients. Like this patient, his blood pressure is quite well controlled with lisinopril, and with lisinopril, the dose was not mentioned by Dr. Prasad said, sir, but I think he was not on a higher doses of lisinopril, only a single
Yeah.
antihypertensive drug, and his blood pressure is 120 by 80. In this particular case, definitely nicotine replacement will not going to make much of an impact and much of a trouble for managing his blood pressure. But if this case is like 180 by 110 or so with other risk factors, diabetes and dyslipidemia, that's the case where we will be little more cautious.
If Dr. Prasad, I can add one more thing here is that because the therapy in treating a smoker also means behavior counseling and follow-ups. So we don't depend entirely on the drugs. It is also how you counsel the people and how often you follow up with these patients. So in such a case, perhaps more frequent follow-ups may also help along with.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, am I missing a raised hand from one of the panelists here? No, I think so. I thought so. So, but you got in, Dr. Pandey sir, with your permission, may I continue?
Yeah, sure.
Sir, you got in a very important point about behavior counseling and therapy, and that's why I think we have two psychiatrists on the panel and one psychiatrist moderating. I think that's why that behavior counseling is very important. So, but before I come to my dear colleagues and friends to answer that, there is one important thing which I have to ask. And I think Dr. Ashish would be the right person before I come to my colleagues and friends. Dr. Ashish,
Dr. Ashish has not joined actually. He's
Yeah,
not.
sir, sir, Dr. Ashish is not able to join because
No problem. So no issues at all. We'll take the behavioral therapy and counseling part with the question which I had. Any of the panelists can answer at the end. So Dr. Neeraj is there. Dr. Neeraj Ramani, Dr. Agarwal is there. Yeah, you're welcome. And what would your line of treatment be? The pharmacotherapy part is addressed, and Dr. Gupta sir rightly pointed out the behavioral and the counseling part. So what would be your approach in this client of mine, and how can we help him better? Dr. Neeraj, Dr. Agarwal, yeah. Dr. Neeraj, you said something?
No, I was just waiting for ladies first, but then if you want, I can answer.
Yeah.
Dr. Arita, would you like to say?
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for the opportunity. So, yeah, I would just like to say that obviously behavior therapy plays a very important role in tobacco cessation because what happens is when a person leaves tobacco, so for maintenance, they will have stressors in life, they will have maybe social pressures, they will be having boredom and everything, which again may lead to obviously relapses, which are very common in all drugs and substances, including tobacco. So behavior therapy definitely plays a very important role. Like we have seen CBTs have played a very important role in people with tobacco cessation in their maintenance phases. So obviously, when you work on their cognition, their behavior, how to cope up with the situations they may have or they may face later in life, so that they don't relapse again or they don't take tobacco or smoking or any other substance as a substitute just to get their stress relief. So, of course, in this case, I would like to say that apart from NRTs, various medicines which are available as anti-craving drugs, and along with this, other therapies are very important for maintenance of the cessation.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Shetty. If you may allow me to say, see the behavior and the therapy and the counseling part of it is a very important aspect. We have to address because we have to address the behavioral aspect of the addiction. Okay. Now, during this, we need to consider several things. One is one-to-one counseling and also the group therapy, as mentioned by Dr. Christina. What we can, what is an important part over here is we need to consider the various aspects of changes that an individual progresses through. As suggested in the trans theoretical model developed by Prochaska and de Clement. if we see the various stages which they have suggested, they are pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. So in your case, the case which you have presented, the patient, I would say, is in the stage 4. But many times we get patients who are just in the pre-contemplation, where they are worried about the cons of leaving the addiction than about the pros of leaving the addiction. Now that's where the group therapy comes into picture, as suggested by Dr. Christina, where a person gets to speak to other people who have gone through it, who have gone through the process of de-addiction, and that's where they get the confidence, okay, I also need to kind of do something about it. And then he progresses to the other stages, and each stage has a different intervention strategy which is required, so that we can help the person to move to the next stage of as mentioned in the trans theoretical model by Prochaska and Reclement. And the patient will oscillate to and fro in that, and that's where the counseling part is very important. It's not so simple like you suggest he takes the medicine and tomorrow he stops craving and goes. So like everyone has emphasized, counseling and the behavioral therapy part is a very, very important aspect of the treatment. And that will also address, like Dr. Aditya said, okay, they invariably, I feel in my practice, invariably patients have some underlying psychiatry problem like anxiety, depression or something, which has been camouflaged by their addiction behavior. So that needs to be unraveled, that needs to be addressed, and you need to help the patient to cope with that. That's where the CBT will come into picture, which was mentioned by Dr. Aditya Agarwal.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Dr. Neeraj. Dr. Aditya, any more comments before I go to the next panelist?
Yeah, so I would also like to mention here that we have seen like in our practice that various patients who take tobacco, like chewing, and the patients who smoke. So when they are smoking, they need more of the patches rather than the patients who are chewing tobacco, because they have that conditioning and a habit to chew tobacco and they need something in their mouth basically. So with the patches, we have generally seen the complaint of patients with tobacco chewing that, you know, they get that craving, they get that thing just to have something in mouth, for which then we suggest some other alternatives like they can prepare at home, you know, just a mixture of our household things like soft and maybe coconut and everything. So this is the problem which we have seen in our general practice.
That we see the oral fixation part, you give something for them to chew, so that behavioral, what Dr. Jay mentioned, I think the behavioral mechanism to control, you put something in your mouth, and the process of lighting the cigarette, taking it and putting into your mouth, that process gets cured by that oral chewing. Yeah, thanks, Dr. Yeah, so that also brings to an important question. I think Dr. Namita Shanbag, are you there, ma'am?
Yeah, I'm there.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Ma'am, so you have heard all our panelists speaking. So the seventh question, ma'am, you are also a public health dentist. You have quite a lot of experience in this particular field. So keeping in mind the dental hygiene, the dental issues, what do you prefer, ma'am, in tobacco cessation? If you, the question 7 in short to be addressed, what do you prefer? And preferably those with a poor oral hygiene, and like this particular client of mine had this yellowing and everything.
Yeah.
So what is your take on it, and how would you approach this patient, ma'am?
Yeah, when you talk about tobacco use, and it is one of the major risk factors for oral cancer, and including periodontal disease, what you're talking about. So as such, people who consume, who use tobacco, or maybe you're talking about snuff or chewing tobacco, I'm talking about, and smoking, you might find that they have very common gum disease. Gum disease is very common among them. And with other forms of tobacco, we have OSMF2. So it ranges from early stages to the late stages of oral submucous fibrosis. So keeping all these things, it's very common, and people are not aware that they are suffering from this condition either, which is so common. So when you talk about NRT and I think education and making them aware of what the problem is first and foremost line of patient education comes into picture. And further to it, gums, as everybody has said, TMJ diseases, it is to be used with caution, and patches also when you are suffering from already oral disease and a condition. So how efficient and how far they could use this puts us into a question mark.
Ma'am, one specific question to you. In case of OSMF, should we defer gums and lozenges because they will be also local irritants? So in such cases, should we prefer patches, because inhalers, and I'm not very sure how it is, how commonly it is available. But for OSMF patient, submucosal fibrosis, should we avoid gums and lozenges and prefer patches, or is there any other form of treatment you advocate?
See, usually when you talk about dental professional and NRT, we refrain from giving them any medications. So I feel that we are yet to come into prescribing NRT, prescribing the medications. But as you said, when you talk about oral submucous fibrosis and other conditions, patches and gums will interfere in their already sore mouth.
Okay. Thanks, ma'am.
Yeah.
Two important questions. I open it to the house. Anyone can answer. There are two questions which I had. One of them is not here, I think. One is the question 4. Will a multimodal approach will be suitable for this person, who the case which I presented? And second, what would be the difference between lozenges and gums? So I was referring to Dr. Ashish because we had a short discussion once in between, where he mentioned that lozenges he prefers because of its mode of action and greater bioavailability. So literature says a lot. So I have two questions for the panelists. Anyone can talk on it. One is the multimodal approach. Will it be useful for this client? And given a choice between lozenges and gums, which one would you prefer? Open to all the panelists who wants to comment.
I'll prefer multimodal therapy and definitely lozenges over the gums. You know, that's the patient experience clinically also.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, can I come on this?
Yeah, please.
The amount of nicotine absorbed per lozenges had a higher, somewhat higher than that is delivered by the gum, is what the evidence says.
Yeah.
Plus TMJ problem. People don't
reduces.
Want to.
Yeah.
Reduces.
Yeah, Dr. Neeraj, you have raised your hand.
Yeah. Basically, yes, definitely multimodal treatment is the way. That is the only way I will suggest. And second thing is, when it comes to tobacco chewing, oral tobacco, I prefer to give lozenges, because that feeling of something parked between the cheek, that is very important for the tobacco chewer. So I suggest lozenges for tobacco chewers, gutka chewers, and for smokers, then there is an option whether they want a gum or a lozenge. Then I let them choose.
Okay, great. Dr. Pawan sir, two participants have raised hands. Do we take the question at this time or at the end, sir?
No, we can take it now itself, because we can continue, because it's the panel is there and all the speakers are there. Please continue with the question. We can take the question, sir.
So, Mr. Amit Kumar Singh has raised the hand. Shruti, require your intervention to unmute Mr. Amit Kumar Singh. Or Rishabh, you can help us in unmuting him.
And there was Mr. Abdul Ghaffar who also wanted to ask some question.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Mr. Abdul,
Mr. Abdul Ghaffar, if you want to ask the question, please go ahead.
We have unmute themselves and ask questions.
Yeah, Abdul Ghafarji, you can unmute.
Yeah. Thank you for giving the time to me. There is no question, but the suggestion is that we are in fear. अपन ये लगता कि अपन लघुमती में है. आपको पहले दिन से पहले टीन से अपन टीनेजर्स अवेयरनेस एजुकेशन इज मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट इन दिस टोबैको सीजन, और इसके लिए अपन खास करना चाहिए. और इनके लिए जो अपना जो ट्रेनिंग सेंटर है ना, उनके बारे में जरा इंफॉर्मेशन ज्यादा देना हमको. इन ट्रेनिंग सेंटर तो जो विलेजर्स, आई एम प्रैक्टिसिंग इन रूरल एरिया सिंस 40 years, but we have not any qualified or any training center is there और टोबैको होते हैं. इसके लिए जो आपको इंफॉर्मेशन देना है जरा प्लीज. थैंक यू.
Dr. Pawan sir, you would like to answer that?
Dr.
Rakesh Gupta sir, or anyone?
I think so. Yes, I can answer this. Yeah. So just if all the panelists and all, with the permission of the chair, and just actually Abdul ji, हमारा I Can Care में हमारा ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम चल रहा है. We are giving online training across India, और आप हमारे I Can Care प्रोग्राम के साथ आप जुड़िए. हमारा 3 प्रकार के ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम्स है. We have got मार्शल्स कोर्स, we have got एम्बेसडर कोर्स, and we have got a स्पेशलिस्ट कोर्स, जिसमें हम लोग हर रकम से ट्रेनिंग देते हैं और उनको हम लोग सिखाते हैं कि किस प्रकार से वो टोबैको इंटरवेंशन कर सकें. So ये हमारा पूरा प्रोग्राम चलता है. I Can Care is completely 360 डिग्री हमारा केयर लेता है फ्रॉम अवेयरनेस, लाइक स्कूल अवेयरनेस प्रोग्राम है हमारा, जिसमें हम लोग कहते हैं बी स्मार्ट डू नॉट स्टार्ट, जागरूक रहें प्रारंभ ना करें. इसमें हमारा बुकलेट भी है, और हम इसमें स्कूल्स में हम लोग ट्रेन देते हैं कि हमारे मार्शल्स को कि वो कैसे जाकर के स्कूल्स में जाकर के बच्चों को बता सकें और उनको सिखा सकें कि इसमें ज़्यादा मतलब तंबाकू के जैसे चीज़ों में वो मतलब चालू ही ना करें, प्रारंभ ही ना करें. So I will not take much time of the August gathering, so I will just stop here. But आप अब्दुल जी हमारे साथ जुड़िए, and for that matter for everyone, I'm just putting in this Facebook link. Please be part of our I Can Care community. It is a ever increasing community for tobacco cessation, which is providing I Can Care is providing all the solution that is required. Thank you so much, and over to you, Rakesh ji.
Thank you. I'm satisfied with your reply. Thank you.
Yeah, anyone?
So there was a raised hand, 2 raised hand as well.
Okay, Dr. Prasad, I can say that with my experience of working in the community for 1.5 decades, अब्दुल गफार जी ने जो पूछा है उसका एक सबसे बड़ा पहलू जो बहुत पॉजिटिव है वो ये है कि as compared to urban areas, in rural areas it's easy to do the group counseling. और अब जो है वो हमारे पास एक मैकेनिज्म है ग्राम पंचायतें और ग्राम सभा के द्वारा, जिससे कि हम अवेयरनेस को ज्यादा अच्छे से क्रिएट कर सकते हैं, और उसमें कोई बहुत खर्चा नहीं होता है. आप चाहे उसको फ्लिप चार्ट से लें, चाहे आप वॉल राइटिंग करें, आप जो अपना मैसेज है वो बहुत आसानी से दे सकते हैं. और अगर आप आई कैन केयर वाला जो है मैकेनिज्म अडॉप्ट कर सकें तो वो तो बहुत ही अच्छा है. सोने में सुहागा है कि आपके पास जो है वो सशक्त लोगों की जो है वो एक फौज भी हो जो कि इस चीज को बहुत अच्छी तरह से आगे भी पहुंचा सके. तो दोनों ही चीजें बहुत जरूरी है. जब तक आप ऐसा नहीं कर पाए कि आपको उचित व्यक्ति मिल पाए, आप स्वयं भी इस काम को कर सकते हैं, ये मैं कहना चाहता हूँ.
मैं केवल इसमें एक ही चीज प्रसाद सर, इफ यू कैन अनशेयर कर सकते हैं, इफ यू कैन अनशेयर द स्क्रीन. ओके, इसमें मैं केवल एक ही चीज कहना चाहूंगा. हम जब भी स्कूल्स में जा रहे हैं या कहीं पर भी जा रहे हैं, देन वी हैव टू गो विद नॉलेज, और तभी हमारा फायदा होता है. केवल ये कहना कि तंबाकू खराब है, तंबाकू खराब, बच्चे उसमें से नहीं समझ पाते. दैट इज व्हाई वी हैव स्टार्टेड दिस मार्शल कोर्स, जिसमें हम सबको ट्रेन करते हैं कि आप कैसे जाकर के आगे जाकर के आप बच्चों को या अपने क्लब में या अपने सोसाइटी में कैसे बोल सके. सो आई थिंक वी आर 607. मिस्टर Adita, you want to say something? Sorry, over to you, Prashad sir. Adita has raised her hand.
Yeah, so I would like to add here that we have a lot of teenagers and adolescents who starts with smoking because of peer pressure. So for them, one more thing which is very important is parent involvement and parent group counseling, because sometimes what happens is parents are not able to understand what the child is going through, and then it creates a drift between parent and the child. So it is very important for the parent therapy and sessions also, along with the teenager and adolescents who are into smoking and tobacco.
Absolutely.
Point well taken,
We have
yeah.
to have a community program. That's the very important. Community program is very important. So we'll just take the last question from Saurabh Singh. Saurabh Singh, you want to say, आपको कुछ बोलना है? And then we have Dr. KR to give her.
Yeah, Dr. Sarkar has to,
remarks.
the chairperson has to give her views. सौरभ सिंह जी बोलिए, आपका यू आर अनम्यूटेड, आप कुछ पूछना चाह रहे थे. Not audible.
उनका आवाज नहीं आ रहा है, so I think we will continue. Over to you, Dr. Prasad and Dr. Sarkar for.
No, it's now Dr. Sarkar's stage. She has been waiting all this time. Ma'am, please.
So good evening, everyone. No, I've not been waiting all this time. It's been a pleasure to listen to all the speakers, and the panel discussion has really been very vibrant. First of all, of course, thank you, the iCan Care team, Dr. Reena especially, and Shruti for coordinating this. The case was really very good because it covered so many aspects for us who are listening to it. The psychological dependence, I think even the family history perhaps plays an important role in whether it whether the person is motivated to quit. In this particular case, since the father had a MI, I would imagine that would motivate him to want to quit. But there can be people who feel that, oh, unko to kuch nahi hua, and so they're not motivated to quit. So my take home is that, the motivation is the most important thing. And though it might be difficult to follow up clinically, as one of you mentioned, it's probably very important, because otherwise, unless the motivation is there, giving NRT or anything, I don't know whether it really helps in the long run. The other thing is, as a oral pathologist, as Dr. Namita said, we do not think so much of NRT as a first line, primarily because the patients that we see, they don't come to us with the motivation of quitting. We often see lesions in their mouths because of a smokeless tobacco habit or a smoking tobacco habit. And for us, the first step is to try and motivate them that they have to quit. So the behavioral aspect, I think, does become more important. But when NRT is required, I'm not sure whether the regulations permit dentists to prescribe. I'm not sure about that. Maybe Dr. Namita can enlighten us about that. And most importantly of all, of course, at the end of the day, I think for addiction, NRT benefits outweigh the risks of smoking. And so definitely it has to be kept as an option. And all of us who are sort of stakeholders in tobacco addiction, we should get informed. And in that way, I think iCan Care is doing a wonderful job. That's what I want to say. Thank you again, everyone, for a very vibrant discussion.
Ma'am. Pawan sir, I will have to take 1 or 2 minutes to tell what the patient is, how the patient is as of now, because he's still following up. So the scene right now is on nicotine gums. It has come down to half of what he started, but he still has that occasional cigarette on and off. Weekends he doesn't have, but whenever he faces some stress or something in the workplace where his anxiety is provoked, he still goes and has 1 or 2. But we are on the right path because the number of gums have reduced now to nearly 50%. But he's still on and off because of the behavioral mechanisms. The amygdala still forces him to go and have that one cigarette in a day. No fixed pattern, but still it is there. I think over a period of time, with the behavioral intervention, we should be succeeding. So he is in his last phase of treatment now.
There's just one thing. What is the period when we can say that, okay, now he's permanently quit? What would be that time?
There are 2 ways. There are 2 ways of saying that. Actually, 3 ways. One is the carbon monoxide. So there should be no carbon monoxide in the blood at all when because even a single puff causes increases carbon monoxide levels in the blood or the serum cortisol levels, which are checked. The second is the faith. He says, I have not taken for 12 weeks and I believe it.
No, I mean, in how much time can you be confident that he's not going to relapse?
There's no such thing, ma'am. In relapse, because what happens, Rakesh Gupta, sir, please.
I think we should go with the experience and the evidence. The Quitlines have an experience that those who have quitted for over 6 months generally are the long-term quitters. So that is one aspect. Relapse rate is not very high. In my own study of 3.5 years of a cohort of over 1,000 patients, the relapse rate is just about 15%. And the successful quitters are about 42%. So yes, if you follow them up proactively, and I have adopted that Quitline model because I started tobacco cessation practice with Quitlines. I have found that if you can schedule your calls proactively and with the patient in the beginning itself, and if you can continue calling them for 6 months to 1 year, you will find that those who are successful quitters, there is a kind of pattern that after 6 weeks, most of these won't relapse. And they are the most prompt people to respond to your calls. In fact, many of them keep waiting that you will give them a call on that particular day. So I think there is an evidence to it that those who have quitted for 6 months or more, the relapse rates are definitely lower in them as compared to those who have been shifting their quit dates from the primary quit date to many other quit dates.
Just if I can put in here, definitely when you are talking to the patient, you can know, see, we have got a quit coaches and quit buddy program running with iCanCare. And with this program, we are able to actually judge a person who is either who is going to fail very soon or who is going to relapse, because from the type of response that he gives, it is quite evident that he is something. But as Dr. Rakesh said, a regular follow-up is what is required for this patient, and that definitely makes a lot of difference. So I think, sir, we are beyond our time. So can we wind up with the panel discussion so that we can go to the quiz? But before we wind up, can my Dr. Nimesh is there? So can we ask some important words from him, his inputs? Dr.
Hi,
Nimesh.
Pawan.
Hi,
hello,
sir.
Pawan, and everyone. It's been wonderful, as the chairperson said. I only want to flag that I think somewhere we need to, by 18th, next Sunday, when we come to multimodal treatment, get a little better collective grip on one, the successful quit rates, how low or moderate or high they are. Two, the last issue being discussed, the duration, what should be enough. Dr. Rakesh Gupta and you and we have kind of known each other for a long while, but and I don't want to be the devil's advocate, but I would be very cautious about short periods being indicative of long-term abstinence. And the last but possibly a controversial issue that I want to pick up, Prasad, I wanted to ask you, what is our difficulty in accepting that person's outcome, as you are saying? If he occasionally goes and smokes 1 or 2 cigarettes, I mean, it's great that you want to try and get him totally abstinent, but what's our difficulty in accepting that? And would you consider other pharmacotherapy with NRT? Because that's one issue that I'm sure next Sunday we'll discuss. So what I'm looking forward to after last Sunday and today is actually next 2 Sundays. And I would prefer a little more of frank discussion with differences in perception or experience rather than we all converging on points that we seem to agree upon. I do find that our bonhomie and our respect for each other seems to not bring out the differing perceptions or experiences. And I would really urge if all of us can do that, especially next Sunday, the 18th, on multimodal treatment, and then be able to summarize, as Pawan has visualized, on 25th to say what is our consensus statement. I don't know if there are any immediate responses or we'll wait till next Sunday. But please, it'll be very nice if there are any immediate responses. Thanks.
Sir, if we, Dr. Nimesh, sir, if we start this topic, we'll require 1 more hour, sir.
Absolutely. So
all are yes, 40 years plus, all of us are 20 years plus. It will go into a discussion soon, like you said, the next Sunday, sir.
yeah, so we will open it up on the next Sunday, and we await for the next Sunday and 18th and 25th, where we have got many more presentations and a lot of discussions coming up.